Oh, I've never heard that before. Well, that's exciting. Welcome, everyone, to our Voices of Inclusion speaker series. I am Millie Prothero, the Director of Programs and Operations for Best Buddies in Pennsylvania. But today we have people from all over the country joining us, which we're so excited about. I do want to introduce my colleague, Andrew, who's also from BBPA. He's joining us today. So thank
Hi.
you, Andrew, for your tech support.
Nice to be here.
We have a speaker here today with us who we've actually had before. We were just comparing notes. I believe it was November. So we're long overdue to circle back and continue a really great conversation. And my good friend, Kerry Arnold, is our speaker today. She is a lifelong advocate for people with disabilities. She is an assistant professor at the Community College of Philadelphia. She has worked in the behavioral health fields, working with folks with disabilities and mental health diagnoses. She's just a great resource and a wonderful person. And she has agreed to share herself and her heart with us today. She's going to be talking about being an ally in the LGBTQ community. And she's going to answer some questions that you may have, but I'll let her sort of introduce exactly where we'll begin. We'll kind of refresh everyone's memory about who Kerry is and what has brought her to where she is today. So I'm going to mute myself and throw it to you, Kerry.
Oh, you are a rock star, Millie. I adore Millie, and it is such a delight to be back. I recognize a lot of familiar faces who asked amazing questions, and I also am so thrilled that and I'm seeing it come up in the chat, there are people here from all over. This is just phenomenal. So, you know, when we begin our conversation back in November, and I'll do this as a way of introducing myself. I wanted to be as transparent as possible in the event that there is anyone in our participating audience that maybe has been reluctant about identifying yourself under the LGBTQ umbrella. And we'll talk about what the heck do all those letters mean. And so when I came out, I was 28 years old, and I identified as the L under that umbrella, as lesbian, which means that my preference for who I want to have as a partner is another woman. And, you know, I grew up in a time period, I'm way older than you think. If you got really close to my Zoom screen, I have all kinds of gray hair over here. But I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and people really didn't even have language yet. The word that was used was homosexual. And believe it or not, when I was growing up, if you identified that way, you were considered to have a diagnosis that should be treated in a mental institution, because that's how much society did not understand this. And fortunately, that got removed in the 70s. And if anybody is following things in our state of Pennsylvania, they actually wanted to keep that word in as something that is considered to be obscene. And so unfortunately, we're still taking steps backwards. So there's a lot that we've progressed so much since I was a younger person, and figuring out who I liked in the world and who I wanted to partner with in the world. But we've also taken a lot of steps back. But I also identify more now with the Q in the LGBTQ label, and the Q stands for queer. And back in my day of growing up, if you were called queer, it was used in a very mean way. It was used to hurt you. And what I love about young people who especially are allies or under the LGBTQ label is about 10 years ago or so, they wanted to reclaim that word back and say, you know what? It does not have to be an ugly word. It does not have to be a word that gets used to hurt people. But interestingly enough, it's also a word that means different or odd. Odd was more like the way they used it to hurt you. But different is one of the ways that for people that are starting to figure out who they want to partner with, some people do not want to be locked under a certain letter, because then if you stray from being under that letter, then people all of a sudden get an attitude with you. What do you mean? You said you were a lesbian and now you like a guy. Well, that's just terrible. Or vice versa. You said you were gay. By the way, that's the G under the LGBTQ umbrella. If you're a guy and you've been with men, but suddenly you have feelings for somebody that identifies as a woman, then they don't know what to do with you. And so queer became this wonderful, larger word that says, I'm different, I have choices, and I have choices about who I love. And that may not always be the box that you would like to put me under, but I may also have choices about how I want to express myself in my appearance. So I want to draw all of your attention to something. If you look at my Zoom box, you see in parentheses after my name, Kerry A, just A for my initial for my last name, you see she/they. So what the heck does that mean? Well, this is part of what it might mean if you identify as queer, which is that I was born a female. I have all the female parts. I haven't transitioned. The T in the LGBTQ is for somebody who is transgender. And that means that they actually make a transition from the genitalia, the parts that they are born with biologically, and they transition into the opposite gender because they feel in their heart and their soul that they are more that gender. Well, being queer means that I might feel like expressing myself and that I'm a woman, but a lot of the times I don't like to identify that way. And so like right now I'm wearing a boy's plaid shirt and a boy's t-shirt, and you can't see me from the waist down, but I have like camouflage pants on and sneakers, and I have a very short haircut and it's buzzed on the side. But there was a time where I had longer hair, and there are times where I wear long earrings. And so what it means really to be queer is that you can how water flows? There's a term called being fluid, which means I get up in the morning and I see what I feel like, and I see what I want to put on, like my rainbow gay glasses that I have on today. And they make me happy and they make me smile, but it's taken me a long time to come into that. So I say all of those things to you because you might feel that way yourself, or you have someone very close to you that you want to support. And we had that conversation a lot in the last time we were together, that a lot of you identified as allies. And so what it means to be an ally is you fully support your loved one, you fully support your friend in who they love, who they want to be with, and you're not judging them. So, oh, and I forgot one more letter. I'm going to touch on one more letter under LGBTQ because I see in the chat that someone just said that you've heard about LGBTQ before, which is wonderful. And there might be people that haven't. So what the heck does the B stand for? It stands for bisexual. And a lot of people misunderstand bisexual. Bisexual, and I'll tell you all, it's as misunderstood as the word bipolar is misunderstood. So for any of you that identify and know the word bipolar, then you know that people use it wrong. And sometimes people will use it as slang. Oh, stop being so bipolar if somebody can't make their mind up about a decision. That's not really what bipolar is. You know, bipolar is that a person has a lengthy time period where they feel depressed. And maybe every once in a while they have a period where they become manic and they have super high energy and they might be talking very fast and they feel really impulsive. Or it could be the opposite, where they have once in a while depression and then they have even time where nothing's going on. Well, that's actually kind of true for being bisexual. That what it really means is I might choose, for instance, or have a preference for being, let's say, with the opposite sex. So if you're a woman, let's say that you like to have boyfriends. But every once in a while, you have met another woman and you go, wow, they're really attractive. They're really pretty. I think I would like to be with them. I'm attracted to them. And so sometimes it's about somebody often liking the opposite sex, but sometimes will be with the same sex, or it could be opposite of that, that people have been with the same sex, but they suddenly have fallen in love with somebody of the opposite sex because it was no longer about the parts we have. It was about our hearts and the way that our hearts connect. You know, so I gave you a very long-winded introduction to me, but I wanted to make sure I integrated all of those letters when I did that. So I'm going to just pause in this moment because my guess is there might be questions or people might be curious about something I just said, and please don't be shy. If you've got a curiosity, you could put it in the chat and ask a question there, or you could raise your hand and I'll call on you. Nicolette, you've got your hand up. I'll let you unmute yourself. There you go.
So I actually have a couple of my friends, and I'm struggling with this now. I actually know 5 friends who I deeply are friends with, and they believe in that, which I'm totally fine with that. But my question is, what path should I take? What friends should I hang out with? Because I feel that with my other 5 friends, I feel I tend to want to fit in and believe in what they believe. So that's my question: is there any advice for that?
I think that is a beautiful question, Nicolette. It's a fantastic question. I'm going to share something with you, Nicolette, about my own history a little bit that maybe will be very helpful to you. When I came out as a lesbian, I had a circle of friends too. And 3 of my very closest friends had a hard time with it, and they stopped being my friend. And it hurt my heart deeply because they didn't understand it. They thought that I was suddenly going to be weird or different, or that they had to be different. And what I would tell you, Nicolette, is if you love these people or really, really like your friends and you would show up for them no matter what, you don't have to believe in what they believe. You just have to be their friend, because that's actually what matters. And I say that to you as somebody who lost people, that I really wish that they thought that they could have just loved me. They didn't have to embrace the way that I lived my life. I just wanted them to be my friend, and so that's what I would say to you is you don't suddenly, Nicolette, have to go, okay, I have to have rainbow flags up everywhere, and I'm going to get glasses like Kerry does, and I'm going to have to listen to certain kinds of music because they all do, and they're lesbian or gay or bi. No, be Nicolette. Just be Nicolette and show up. And that's the best advice I could give you.
Yeah, I personally love that because I tend to have a hard time with it. Is there also is there pronouns or words if I come up to my friends, is there words that I could say or I could let them know that I'm there to support them?
The best word you could say, Nicolette, is I would like to be an ally. I would like to be an ally, because that's how people who identify under the LGBTQ really know that you're there for them. Now, but you also mentioned something very important. So I was talking just a little bit ago about my pronouns, using she and using they. One of the best things, Nicolette, and I'm going to say this for everybody, let's say you have a friend who is changing the way that they express themselves on the outside, meaning you've known that they were born a female or they were born a male, but they are dressing differently. Or they might even say to you that I'm transitioning. I think that I'm going to be transgender, or they might even use a term called I want to be non-binary, which means I don't want you to look at me as male. I don't want you to look at me as female. So one of the questions that we can ask our friends and loved ones, if they let us know that, or we know that about them, is to just ask them, is there a pronoun that you prefer? So when I'm talking about something, that I'm using the right one, should I be using she and her, or should I be using they and theirs? What would you prefer? And that would be really, really helpful for your friends. My gosh, Nicolette, your questions are so fantastic. I want you to be my friend.
Yeah.
I so freaking want you to be my friend, because there are people, and I'm somebody that's a year away from being 60 years old, so I could be some of your folks' grandmoms here. But I still have people in my own circle that don't understand this, that wouldn't even know to ask the question that you just asked, or care to ask the question that you just asked. So thank you for that. I think you have helped our conversation tremendously. And I'm gonna open up the floor and see if if this has sparked some other questions. So thank you, Nicolette.
Thank you, Nicolette. Great questions. I know Lisa had a question that I thought was so great. I'm gonna go ahead and ask Lisa to unmute and spotlight her. Lisa, you were saying in the chat, you were curious about how Kerry told her family.
Yeah, how she how people tell the family and the friends and the aunts and uncle and cousins, nephews, nieces, whatever they have in the family and friends, and how she dealt going to school or college.
Yeah, this is such a great question, Lisa. I'm really happy
Thank you.
to answer that. You know, Lisa, I had so much shame about knowing what the truth was about me. And because of the time period that I grew up in, it
Yeah.
wasn't safe for me. And so I didn't tell anybody in high school or college. And so when I came out, when I was 28 years old, in terms of friends and family, I started to tell friends one at a time. And when I did that, I let them know, and I used the word lesbian. You know, that when I talked to them, I said, I want you to know something about me that I kept as a secret inside of me, and it's something that is my truth now. And it's important for you to know this about me, and that I am a lesbian. And what that means is that the way in which you may like men and want to date men, I would prefer to be with women. And that doesn't change anything about who I am. And so I would try to have really gentle conversations. And as I was sharing earlier, there were friends that didn't want to be my friend any longer because they didn't either believe in it, they thought that it was going to change me, or it was going to change our relationship. Um, my mother, in terms of my family, my mother was the very first person I told. And I
Was it hard on her?
no, interestingly enough, Lisa, I'll share something very interesting with you. I told my mother not too long after my father died suddenly when I was 30 years old.
Oh,
And so I never had a chance to come out to my father. However, I'll tell you all a very quick story, since Lisa asked this question, and maybe you will all appreciate that sometimes our family lets us know that they know without actually saying it. So my very, very first girlfriend, I brought up to my family, and my family lives in the Lehigh Valley, and we decided it would be really safe to go to Music Fest with them in
oh
Bethlehem.
yeah.
So my first girlfriend was an African American woman, and I did not introduce her as a girlfriend yet because I hadn't come out to my family yet. And I remember coming into my parents' house, and one of my mom's favorite things to do was tell me about the people in my high school who got married, as a way to hint, when are you getting married? And so she'd always show me the newspaper clipping and go, look, so and so got married. And so she's doing this in front of my then girlfriend, who she only thinks is my friend at the time. But my father steps in and says, she doesn't want to hear all about that. She's different. And I went, inside, I was going, oh my God, he knows. He knows. He's trying to let me know. And so on the drive home with my girlfriend, she says, you know, your father knows. And he's trying to let you know he knows. Well, 1 week later, he died. 1 week later. And I can't help but believe that maybe he was letting me know. And so when I had a time just with my mom as we were cleaning out his things at the house, maybe 2 weeks after he died, because my then girlfriend, she came to the service, she was very supportive. She brought me up clothes and everything, and she was so very loving. And I decided it's really important for my mom to know. So I sat down with her and told her, and her response was, I already knew, because she was doing more for you than a typical friend. And I saw the way that you looked at one another. And God love my mom, that I thought that was so amazing, and then that gave me the door to open up to my brother and then my sister. But all that to say, Lisa, and I think this is such a very important question, again, because if there's anybody here in our Zoom today that maybe knows that you're lesbian or gay or bisexual or queer, and you might want to start telling loved ones, I will tell you this: every new situation that you are in, you make a decision whether or not to come out. Coming out is a lifelong process. Just getting on the call with you today, I knew what our topic was. Of course, I'm going to come out, but it's always a little bit of nervousness to say, oh, there's a whole room of people that you could have judgments. You may have a religion that does not agree with this. And I really understand that. And I really get that. But every time we're in a new situation, we have to make a decision. Is it the right time to come out? Is it safe? Will I be received okay? And why is it important for me to let this person know in this moment? So we make all those kinds of decisions.
Can I tell you something?
Sure, Lisa.
I'm in a group, it's a harmony theater group, and in Lower Gwinnett, and I thought this guy was dating a girl named Alexa, and I found out it was a man, and I told the person, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm so happy for you and good luck. And it's been good. Like in the beginning, I didn't understand why he did it, and then since I talked to you back in November, now I understand the whole picture. And Andrew helped me out too to understand that person, because he knows that person too.
Oh my God. Lisa, I'm so teary in this moment because that touches my heart so much, because you may not realize what a gift you just gave to your friend. You gave your friend such a gift. You are an example in this moment of what does it mean to be an ally. That is so, so beautiful.
Thank
and
you.
I thank you for sharing that with us, Lisa. It is so wonderful. I want to make sure there is someone here named Taylor, and Taylor put a question in the chat, and it's an important question, which is, how can we help people realize being different isn't a bad thing? Oh my goodness, Taylor, this is such a good question. And I want to respond to that, and then also have you have a chance to talk as well. I think, and this is just my own opinion, I think one of the ways that we can help people realize that being different isn't a bad thing is to show people our true good qualities as a person. Meaning that, that's why I make good choices about when I'm going to come out, because if somebody gets to know me, and they see that I show up as a good friend or I'm a good coworker. And then they get to know me a little bit more, and they might see that I dress a little differently, not typical for a woman, or some of you can't see all this, but I'm covered in tattoos, and so sometimes, people have judgments about that. But when they see how I show up as a person, then when I get to tell them about the thing that's different, I don't really get as much judgment.
Yeah.
So sometimes this whole idea about how people come to that realization is when they get to see just what a lovely soul you are from your heart. And then you get to share something that you feel is the different thing about you. And you'd be amazed how many people get close to you because they realize that you trusted them with something that's a secret inside of you.
Another way would be like, to tell people about all the good things people do. Like, for instance, there's someone with autism in Japan, I believe, that made Pokemon. Yeah.
See, that's great. That is great. I really see where you're headed with this, Taylor, which is, if we give people examples of people who are doing interesting, creative, loving, wonderful things, then people have very different ideas. Because if I love to play Pokemon and I don't understand autism, but now you tell me that the creator of Pokemon that I love to play is somebody with autism, I go, oh, wait a minute. That changes my ideas about what I think about autism. That's a game changer for me. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I was telling Millie about this before we got on the Zoom call. I want to ask you all about something as a way to point you to a very cool show with an interesting example. How many of you, and you can just kind of like raise your hand in your Zoom room, how many of you watch shows on Netflix? Okay, we've got a whole bunch of Netflix watchers in here. How many of you have heard about the show called Special? Do people know that show? I see a couple of hands up. I'm going to tell you why. There's an awesome show called Special on Netflix. The second season just came out. The star of the show is a person with cerebral palsy. He also is gay. And this new season in particular gets really interesting. And if you want to get to know more about seeing someone's life and as they are dealing with how they come out about their disability and how they come out about their sexual orientation, being a gay man, this is such a fantastic show. And I've often directed people, like how Taylor gave us the example of the person that created Pokemon. If I've had people say, geez, I don't really get this whole thing about people being transgender. And I would sometimes say to people, did you ever watch RuPaul's Drag Race? Did you ever watch so-and-so? There's a show on Netflix called Pose. And so I would just direct people to, or I would just give them examples in real life, and ask, what do you think about so-and-so? I remember the big thing for me was when I started really coming out as a lesbian, that's when Ellen DeGeneres came out on her Ellen show. And so I would tell everybody, do you like Ellen DeGeneres? Do you think she's an okay person? Okay, well, guess what? She's a lesbian. Do you like Melissa Etheridge's music? Well, guess what? she's lesbian, you know. And so I love Taylor giving us permission to use people in life as examples, because maybe that helps people ease into it a little bit better.
Kerry, I have a question. It's Millie. So.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you look at balancing the identity of being gay with being seen as a person first. You know what I mean? I think that's something that is a little confusing for people who want to be allies. Like, you don't want to label someone or constantly categorize them, but you also know that they're proud, as your glasses would indicate, of being part of this community. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God, that is so wonderful. You know, it's kind of like this, and I'm sure this is not going to be new to anybody that is part of this call today, which is, think about the concept of person first. I look at that concept, Millie, and I think about that in terms of my identity under the LGBTQ umbrella, that which actually ties back to the coming out decisions, which is, I rarely, if ever, get to know new friends, new work situations, new social situations, and ever say anything about my identity. You know, and so what I think I've really come to understand a bit about is going back to this idea about how we make decisions to come out also has to do with the balance around identity, meaning if I'm wanting to say something about myself too quickly, that means that I don't have clear motives about why I'm doing that. Am I trying to do this to stand out? Am I trying to do this to be extra special, to get some kind of attention? Particularly, this can happen if we're in a circle with other people who are kind of out there as LGBTQ, and we're trying to figure out how to belong right away. It kind of goes back to what Nicolette was asking earlier, you know, and so my mindset is, let's get to know one another, you know, let's build up a rapport. You get to know what I'm about, I get to learn about you. And when the timing is right, then that's the time to say something about that. Or let's just say, for instance, I'm beginning to date. You know, I don't even have to use one of my labels. I might just say, I met this great new person and we're really enjoying one another's company. I don't even have to say if it's male or female yet. You know, I can say I've just started dating online. You don't know who I'm dating, you know? So I think those are the ways that I negotiate those kinds of things.
I love
you
that.
know,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Kerry,
Andrew, I see your hand up.
Oh,
thank you.
I
Thank you, Kerry. I was thinking of something actually, and Best Buddies staff hosts like a monthly DEI, like, you know, awareness call. And with Pride Month coming up, this was a topic we were talking about. Pride, it just generally Pride, of course. But I mentioned something in that call that you made me think of, was the specifically on coming out, which is now, it feels to me, in my perception, there's this almost new stigma around coming out, that it, and I don't think this is always the case or agree with it, that coming out is for attention, or it's not a big deal anymore. And it was so funny you mentioned special, because in the trailer of some of these shows that you're seeing that are representing these communities, they're trying to remove that stigma that coming out is still a big deal and it means a lot to a lot of people. But I wasn't sure if you had any thoughts on like this kind of phenomenon that I personally disagree with, that coming out is you know, something to be done for attention, or in a way, you know, seen as a bad thing anymore.
I love that, Andrew. I really do. I will tell you, I'm with you on that, that the process of coming out is a very big deal, because it's really the first time for people that identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender or queer. It's the first time in many ways that somebody is saying to their loved ones or saying to the world, this is all of who I am. This is the truth about me, and I want you to know the truth about me, because otherwise we feel like we're holding in a secret, that there's some part of us that can't be loved. You know, what I will say is this: I think the attention aspect has less to do with anything related to coming out, but rather somebody wanting to fit in with a certain circle and just sort of randomly going, oh yeah, I'm bisexual, you know, and like, you know, or doing something where they suddenly like say the word and you've known them for a while and it doesn't quite fit, you know, or you think that maybe they're saying it because everybody else that's sitting in that circle has identified a certain way and they want to feel a part of, you know, and so there's a very big difference, because the coming out process, you know, when somebody's telling you about the truth about themselves, you feel it. It's very intimate. And usually people want to do that just like one-on-one. You know, they're not necessarily, but sometimes they might be. They might come out on social media. They might do something on a Facebook page or on Instagram or somewhere else, you know, but I don't see it as trying to get attention for sure.
Thank you. It was just something on my mind, and I just think it's really good to make that point, and I think it adds to the conversation. But thank you for going into it. It definitely helps me. I think it's going to be my Pride Month goal, and we were talking about that as well, like what our goals we have with all these different months and learning, and I think it's definitely going to be something I'm working on.
That's awesome. And I see Justin's hand up, and Justin, you had a great comment in the chat about just like fitting in with diversity and inclusion. I'm hoping you want to say some more.
Oh, yes, I do. It's like, oh yeah, I just like, when I got into college over at UCF, they have an inclusive environment for people with that are dealing with diversity and as well, and also I am also involved in a community where inclusion is. And for people with disabilities, it's like not everyone is different based whether if you're a part of the LGBTQ or in a more diverse population. And inclusion, it'll make everyone feels exceptional.
Justin, you've made my day.
Yeah.
I really mean that, because my God, if there could be inclusive communities everywhere, you know, it would just, the world would feel so different. It would be wonderful. You know, Justin, at the college where I teach, we have an inclusive community. And what it means, and I'm going to add another word to the two words that Justin gave us today, because they're so important. Justin talked about inclusion and he talked about diversity. and I'm going to throw in another word, intersectionality. And that means when different worlds meet and become inclusive with their diversities, meaning that there's an intersectionality for people that have a disability, but that also identify as LGBTQ. And so it really means that in both of those areas, their paths have converged, but they want to be accepted in the world of disabilities and the world of LGBTQ. So if you have a community like yours, Justin, then everybody has a place, which is so awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Wow, I saw a number of other hands come up here. So let's come to, you're listed as Joy Sepp, and I don't know if Joy is your first name, but I'm going to come to you now.
Hi, so when I came out to my mom in 2019, she wasn't too really happy about it. Now, a lot of my family members are really supportive of it, but my mom and my sister aren't too happy with it. How can I get them to accept?
Oh boy, this is a toughie. Well, first of all, and so I just realized that somebody adjusted your letters there, so it's Joyce, right?
Yes.
So Joyce, first of all, thank you for taking a risk just to come out to us, which is a very big deal. And what you just described is very common, meaning that we would love for everyone to accept us immediately. But what happens sometimes, Joyce, is that people have to take time to process because they have beliefs about what this is.
Okay.
Meaning, so when you said that, I believe it's your mom and sister that are having a hard time.
Yes.
That, so they've known you, your mom has known you as her daughter, Joyce, and now you've given her what was formerly a secret that is not a secret anymore, right?
Right.
And so now she's got to kind of like her brain's going, you know, what does this mean? You know, and sometimes what happens, Joyce, is our loved ones think that we're suddenly going to reject them or abandon them, or we're not going to want to hang out with them because they're not gay, you know? And so they go through their own processing of what does this mean for me right now? And so what I would say to you, Joyce, is that have some patience when you're with your mom, when you're with your sister. What I've learned with people that have had a hard time is that I don't like come into those interactions and go, hey, it's me, the gay one, you know, like, you know, but instead be yourself, you know, be yourself. You might at some point, you know, just check in and with mom and say, hey, mom, you know, how are things for you and I right now? How are you doing with me right now? If you're willing to open things up a little bit, but give her time, give her some patience. That's how I have always really gotten to know, like, you know, I can't force this and I can't force acceptance, but if I've given people time, people come around. And if they don't come around, and this is the hardest part, if they don't come around, we have to make peace with, we're not defective. We didn't cause it. It's just, that's their beliefs and that's what they struggle with.
Okay.
You know, make sure, Joyce, you have enough support. Have enough people in your life that are allies, that or who also may have struggled in the coming out process, There's a lot of great books out there. There's some really great support groups online, but that would be a great thing for you right now. It's a very big deal.
Kerry, I just wanted to jump in.
Absolutely.
And first of all, thank you, Joyce, for being open with us. And I know that's not easy to do. But as someone who is a family member of someone who came out, I've had gay friends my whole life. I identify myself as an ally to the LGBTQ community. But when it happened in my family, I was surprised by my reaction because I think I was so shocked. And I was sad that the person that came out didn't tell me earlier. And it took me a long time to get over my own feelings and get out of my own way and realize that it's not my big journey, it's their journey. And I would never want to be a negative part of their journey and their experience. So everybody's kind of on their own time frame with doing that. And like Kerry said, for some, it's going to take a really long time, if ever. But, don't ever let that change the way you feel about yourself, because you have to be true to who you are. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to add a family perspective there, but I love this conversation and I'm going to jump off now.
Oh, Millie, thank you for being willing to share that. Thank you. And I see another hand up. I see Chris's hand up. Chris, would you like to share with us?
I've had a number of good friends within the LGBTQ community. I'm an ally of the LGBTQ community, and I'm a friend of their community. My fight for the LGBTQ people is to enjoy kindness to everyone and to each other. Thank you.
Bless you, Chris. Bless you, Chris. We need all these amazing, beautiful allies that are in this room. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. I see Nicolette and I see Lisa. Let's try to get to each of you. Go ahead, Nicolette.
Yeah, me on. Whoa. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So my other question is, one of my good friends was dating a girl, and the girl became a boy. Now.
Okay.
So she did not tell me up face to face yet. To basically just, I only found it out on Facebook.
Okay.
And I also have other friends who are in that community, but they got engaged. So my question is, like, how do you support them when they're getting married, or if they ask you to be in their wedding?
Okay. So great question, Nicolette. And I'm going to offer something similar to the other question that you asked, but in a slightly different way, because I think these are very, very related. And I can see how much you want to be in folks' lives and be as supportive of an ally and a friend that you can be. You know, when people are doing the same rituals that anybody else in your life may be doing, and sometimes people have different ideas about this, like, oh my God, like, can two women get married? Can a woman get married to a woman who's turning into a man and transitioning to a man? Oh, heck yeah, they can, you know? And so, but you have to go with, Nicolette, what is your own comfort level about being part of a same-sex wedding? Meaning that, and I'll share this with you very briefly, when my first partner and I were getting married, it was so early on, it was in the early 90s, and not a lot of people were doing that yet. And as much as my mother and my siblings supported me, they actually couldn't come to that wedding. They weren't comfortable. And so what I would say to you, Nicolette, is you do the truest things that you can do to be of support. Like you might like to attend the wedding, but maybe you don't feel as comfortable being part of the wedding party, because sometimes what happens is in a same-sex wedding, if it's a female, all the people that are part of the wedding party are all females, and so they might say to you, hey, Nicolette, we would like you to walk down the aisle with another female because, we're having a big fat gay wedding, and you go, oh, I love you. I support you. I don't know if I want to walk down the aisle with another female as part of your wedding party. I think you know where I'm going with this. So what I would say to you is be true. Be true to the best ways that you can support people in the way that they want to have the ritual of loving one another. But if you didn't have a comfort for being in the wedding party, you don't have to be. And you can let them know that you love them anyway. Yeah, I love your question. I really do. Lisa, we got time for you, darling. I can't even believe how fast this is going. My Lord.
I have 2 questions. When you fill an application out, look, I know you work at the college, but I mean, for other people, if they're married or dating somebody, like a boy and a boy or a girl and a girl, does the people at the at HR, do they say, oh, I know we should hire this person?
This is a great question, because guess what? They're not allowed to do any job decision based on who you partner with, because we are protected by a discrimination law. So that's a really important question, but I'll just answer this very briefly. Many places don't have the right boxes to check for people that identify under LGBTQ, but some of them are getting better. Some of them are getting better, even to the point where they say, are you male, female, or other? Because then that allows people who are non-binary or transgender to check the other box, but they're not allowed to discriminate, Lisa. That's a really great, important question.
And another thing, you know how in that movie, Rob, what was that movie called?
Hey, Lisa, based on the time we have, did you want to maybe write your question down and send it to Kerry for later? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
You can even send it to me and I can send it to her. I love your thoughts.
And Millie will make sure, Lisa, I get my response back to you. How's that?
I wouldn't be opposed to a part 3 of this conversation.
I'm in that.
Yeah.
As much as we got covered today, there's so much more.
I know. I didn't even get to do the history part.
I know.
So
Well,
let's do a part 3.
Let's wrap up on the note that next month is Pride Month. So all of us that identify as allies or members of the LGBTQ community are celebrating our friends and lifting them up and sending them love and acceptance. Kerry, any words of advice for how we can be allies, not only in June, but all year long?
Oh gosh, I would probably say this for those of you on social media in particular. One of the best ways you can be an ally is if you see hate speech and you see anyone that is being treated in a different way who is speak up. And that the way you carry yourself, going back to, I believe it was our friend Justin, who let us know about being inclusive. Be inclusive. If there's things that are pride-related things, put a post up. Let people know you care about them. But I would say be as inclusive as you can be. And that would be one of the best ways to not just be part of Pride Month, but every day of the year. Oops, you're on mute there, Millie.
I feel emotional. I don't know what to do with myself. I think that that is such a great piece of advice, and I cannot thank you enough or just bow at your feet, because every time we talk, you fill me up with so much love and joy. So I'm glad that I got to share you with my friends at Best Buddies.
Aw.
And for those of you that don't know, Kerry and I have worked together for years and years, and she has made an impact on so many people.
Love that.
And look, on the internet, we can
Her
make
on
an impact
me.
on even more. So big thank you to Kerry, and happy Pride Month to you.
Oh, thank
so much for
you.
joining us. This was great.
Happy Pride Month. Millie, we'll be in touch, and we're going to do a part 3. Let's do a
Yay.
part 3.
All right, have a great
Thanks.
weekend, everybody.
Wonderful.
Thank
Oh,
you.
have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend, everyone. Thank
Thanks
you
to
for
our,
such a great conversation.
thank you. Thanks
You
to our
guys are
colleagues. who are here,
awesome.
too.
Mwah.
Mwah.